Today we are looking at a blue-black control deck that tries to win games with a Reanimator strategy. Basically, it wants to cast Exhume to bring back a major threat and smash the opponent with it. But unlike a lot of the Rakdos Exhume combo decks, we are not super focused on our combo. We are not all in on the combo strategy. We are more of a tempo and control deck. We have removal, we have counter spells, and we have other creatures that can smack our opponent. Or even in the late game, we can just hard cast a lot of our threats. So this deck has been around for a while in some form. It's been a bit of a fringe deck, never super dominant, but also not bad. But over the last few days, someone 5-0'd a Legacy League on Magic Online with a new version of Blue-Black Reanimator, using a few new cards from Neon Dynasty. So let's take a look at it. It looks like a bit of a spicy list. So we're rocking 18 lands. For card draw, we're rocking a full set of Preordain. So the centerpiece of the deck is Exhume, 2 mana for a sorcery. It says each player chooses a creature card in their graveyard and returns it to the battlefield. So the main combo with this is this creature, Striped Riverwinder. It's 7 mana for a 5/5 with hexproof. So what's great about this is that it puts itself into the graveyard so that we can reanimate it with Exhume if we're lucky as soon as turn 2. But Striped Riverwinder is not the only creature we'd like to Exhume. We also have Mirrorshell Crab, this new creature from Neon Dynasty. So it's 7 mana for an artifact creature. It's a 5/7 with ward 3. But it also has Channel, so you can pay 3 mana to discard this to counter target spell or ability unless its controller pays 3. So a pretty decent counter spell, and the only one in Pauper which can counter abilities. But then also a 5/7 with ward 3 is a pretty decent threat to reanimate. Then, of course, we're also running 3 copies of Gurmag Angler, 7 mana for a 5/5 with Delve. So this has synergy with all of the graveyard filling effects we have. So those are our main threats. Now the rest of the deck is filled out with removal, counter spells, card draw, and ways of filling our graveyard. So first up is another cool inclusion from Neon Dynasty. It's this saga called the Modern Age. It's 2 mana, so its first and second triggers say draw a card, then discard a card. So it's card draw and a way of putting our creatures into our graveyard that we want to reanimate. But then its third and final effect is that you exile it and then return it to the battlefield transformed. And its transformed form is a 2/3 flyer. So for 2 mana we get to loot twice, and then we get a 2/3 flyer. So definitely looks like it has potential. Okay, then of course we have the famous Augur of Bolas, a staple in the format. 2 mana for a 1/3. It says when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them and put the rest on the bottom of your library. So a great way to find our Exhume or any other useful instant or sorcery we want, such as Cast Down, which is 2 mana for an instant, destroy target non-legendary creature, or Counterspell, of course, 2 mana for an instant, counter target spell. We're also rocking Snuff Out for further removal. 4 mana for an instant, destroy target non-black creature, it can't be regenerated. And it says if you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life rather than pay Snuff Out's mana cost. Then, since we have so many ways of putting instants and sorceries into our graveyard, we are also running Deep Analysis. 4 mana for a sorcery, it says target player draws 2 cards. Then it also has Flashback, its flashback cost is 2 mana and 3 life. Then similar, we are running 2 copies of Meldrifter. Of course, 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. And it also has an evoke cost for 3. So this is also a decent thing to evoke and then reanimate as well with Exhume. Then in terms of our last few slots, we have 2 copies of Unexpected Fangs, a card that you see in sideboards fairly frequently. 2 mana for an instant. It says put a +1/+1 counter and a lifelink counter on target creature. So obviously putting a lifelink counter on our big creatures can be pretty massive, especially against burn decks, where even gaining 4 or 5 life in one go is pretty devastating. Then we also have 1 copy of Dispel, just 1 blue for an instant, counter target instant spell. So then we also have Nile Spellbomb for some graveyard hate, since Exhume lets our opponent reanimate a creature as well, so ideally we want them to have no creatures in their graveyard. So Nile Spellbomb, 1 mana for an artifact, tap, sacrifice Nile Spellbomb, exile all cards from target player's graveyard, and it says when Nile Spellbomb is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1 black. If you do, draw a card. For further graveyard hate, we are running 2 copies of Bojuka Bog. It's a land that can tap for black, it enters the battlefield tapped, and it says when it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. So I'll keep this short and sweet. That is the deck. So it looks like it has some potential. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on how the deck can be tweaked and improved. As always, let me know what ideas you have for decks going forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.